The meeting of the Cotuit Fire District Board of Fire Commissioners, Tuesday, December 22nd, 5 p.m. Present, Commissioner Pisano,
Commissioner Conley,
Commissioner Zace.
Chief Rude.
Deputy Chief Pouliot, I see. Very good. Have no information of recording other than our own. Is there any public comment at the outset? Don't see any hands waving. Okay. We're going to have a two-part discussion of our two commissioners, Commissioner Conley and the Needs Assessment Subcommittee, and Commissioner Zace with the School Building Subcommittee. Either of you want to go first?
I'll go first. Adam, A for Adam.
Go for
You
it.
want to do minutes first or no from last month?
Oh,
yeah,
that's right.
That was on the agenda.
That's right. I forgot. Good catch. I've had a chance to review them and I have no problem with them. Have both of you?
Yep, I read them and they seem fine to me.
all good.
Very good. Move we accept them as printed.
Second.
In favor, Pisano.
Conley,
Zace.
Done. All right. Now on to the updates.
So have either of you had a chance to watch the video that's been posted of the recording of the December 10th meeting of the school committee?
I have.
I have
Kevin?
I
You have not. Okay, so I'll try to split the difference here, not to make it so difficult, Rick, Chairman, for you.
Mhm.
So on December 10th, one of the things that we didn't necessarily decide upon was in a formal title for this committee, but in any event, call it the school committee, met. David Anthony from the town attended, and I'll get to that in a second. We did appoint co-chairs, Fran and Jim Danhauser, are co-chairs of the committee. I'm serving as clerk, which is somewhat of an honorary. Now, I guess I need to work with Chris on making sure that things like transcripts and so forth are correct. So in the period of time, Kevin, this is mostly for you, that David Anthony was there, he outlined really a process that the town of Barnstable would go through with this property if left, if there was nothing else that would happen, there would be things that the town would be doing to dispose of this asset or deal with or manage this asset. And one of the things that I think is important that I took from that discussion was that there's some dates in that process that appear to be pretty important. One of them being April 1st. There's sort of a report from the asset committee to the rest of the town government apparatus about where is this going. I know that you're pretty up to date on, both of you, about the issue or the context surrounding this. So I'm happy to go into different questions that you may have, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of what happened at the meeting. There were a number of questions that the people on the committee had for David. By the way, do you all know who is on the committee? Okay.
I do, yeah.
So I think to net it out, there was an action item that we all took from the discussion, and this was after David left, that the committee would draft, approve, and send an email to David, sort of expressing our expressed desire to assume the ownership of the school building and grounds, pending lots of things, of course. Jim was tasked with putting the draft together. He circulated that. There was, essentially, it was really good. So there was, it was approved, and that was sent on December 14th. And David confirmed the receipt of that email. The email essentially said, "Yep, we want to really engage with the town on figuring out how to assume ownership of either the parcel as the part of the parcel as presented by them, which is about half roughly. But an idea was floated in the discussion that perhaps it made sense to think about the district taking over the entire parcel. That might come with some requirements to maintain things like the tennis courts and the fields and whatnot. But that is a possibility. Another idea that was floated during the meeting of the committee was that perhaps that the school might be used, among other things, for a new a new location for a fire station, not in its entirety, and the properties that are currently owned by the district might be sold to defray some of those costs. I'm trivializing all the issues around this, just trying to give you a report of what happened. Possible civic uses that are known or at least thought about. There's folks that have expressed interest in this. There's I think a church organization, the Kettleers, various kids programs, the water department itself, perhaps. These are all question mark things. So there's a mixed use idea. This comes as no surprise to you guys. And I think to net it out, there was a realization amongst everyone on the committee that to be successful, there really needs to be a very active village-wide effort to sell this idea of the taxpayers. So I'll stop there. It was a good committee. It was a good meeting. It was very productive, I thought. And I think the key thing that we were able to do was to say in that email from the committee chairs. The email was co-signed from, not signed, but it was from Fran and Jim to David. That yeah, we want to do this, and so this is to figure out a way to get this building in the hands of the district. Okay.
Adam, could you forward that email that was sent along?
Sure, I'll do that right after the meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fran, you don't have any problem with that, do you? Okay.
I had two questions.
Uh-huh.
Is it your understanding that Mr. Anthony is going to present this to present this email as a written expression of interest on our part to the town?
Yes, that's my understanding. His email confirming. I'll also send you that confirmation. His email said as much.
Great. And did the committee have set a date for another meeting?
Yes, and forgive me, I don't remember it off the top of my head.
January 6th at 6 p.m.
Yes, January 6th at 6 p.m. Thank you, Chief.
Great. Thank you for that.
Now, this is just the beginning, as you can imagine, of a long process. But you've seen some, I think, tremendous work, Chief, in getting access to Have you had a chance to go through the report of I think it was dated January of this year, of the engineers that went? It's essentially a report to the town of Barnstable. It's 111 pages, so I can forgive you if you haven't gone through it with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, my comb had some holes in it, but I went through all 111 pages. Some of it I did not read in detail.
Well, suffice to say that it's a pretty exacting document around the condition of the building, and at least one sense of what various costs to bring the building back to a school in any event. So not that that would have to be done, of course, it should the district take it over, but certainly many of those things would be done. So at your, when you have at least hours on your hand, go through that and try to familiarize yourself with the magnitude of the, or the scale and scope of the, at least one aspect of this whole potential project, which is, what do we do with the building? It's almost like, be careful what you wish for. Suppose you have this building. Well, okay, now we have the building. So
Right. Now there's a lot in there that has to be considered. And yeah, I'll need to get a few more teeth in that comb the next time through it, for sure.
yeah, it's one of those things. I think you'll, Chief, you probably did this too, and Lieutenant Chief, as you look at these things, and Fran too, new things spring out to you every time you go through it.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? There's a lot of work to do, but I think we have a really good start on understanding. We have a pretty deep understanding of the nature of the building. We seem to have a pretty good understanding of the mechanics of how the town works, from this from the asset committee and to the town manager and the rest of the committee, the rest of the town organization, government organization itself. It's potentially a year-long process. If we weren't involved, this whole thing might take even longer than that. So it's not that we have, like a deadline of next Tuesday to do something, but I think it was a good thing that we were able to get that email out to David on the 14th of December. So it's like 4 days after the meeting, signaling our very, very strong and clear interest in at least beginning this process and undertaking it from a serious fashion.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm thrilled to hear that.
I think Chief also sent around sort of there's a hand-drawn septic layout as well, if you had a chance to look at that. And
Yeah.
And if you've had a chance to, and not to steal any of Kevin's thunder, there's some really interesting thoughts around which tie these two presentations together. The idea of potentially using part of this building as a new location for the fire station.
Yeah, in terms of the septic, did Tom, I know he's on your committee, did he?
No, at that point, on the 10th, I don't think there was enough known. If you were going down the direction of, did he have an opinion? He had a general opinion. He wants to keep as much septic residue out of the aquifer as possible. So
Sure.
that's the general perspective of and I don't disagree with that. So there's lots more to understand about how that septic system is functioning. At least we have a sense of what the location is.
And I did see in that meeting, the town, Mr. Anthony did seem to open the door to the possibility of the town giving us the entire square footage, which.
You mean of the parcel?
Of that parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious going forward what the water commissioners might be thinking in terms of utilizing some of that.
Well, without putting words in Tom's or the Water Commission's mouth specifically, it feels to me, based on some of the things I heard and just generally of what I've heard, is the ideal thing is no use of the parcel whatsoever. or certainly no change. Remove any oil, remove any hazardous material, remove any possibility of septic, etc. Ideal, verdant fields.
Mhm.
But I think they realize that that's not possible, really. So if you were going down, did he have any specific comments about things like septic system, other than to say, we really want to know how it, where it is, how it's operating? I don't even know, Chief, if it's Title V, but it's a septic system.
I believe it's a newer septic system. I believe it's a newer Title V septic system,
I
but
didn't remember that. Okay.
yeah.
So
We have a couple of people raising their hand here, Carol and Fran.
Yeah, I attended the water commissioners meeting, as I go to all these meetings, thankfully by Zoom, makes it very nice. But the last 15, 20 minutes of their meeting just the other day, and Fran Parks was there as well, they talked about, Tom gave his report to the committee, and they talked at length about what their ideas would be on fertigations and putting in the newest form of septic systems and stuff like that. So you don't have to watch the whole meeting, but it's at the tail end, and that would give you an idea of what their update was to their committee. Just
Thank you.
yeah, so to clarify, during the meeting, there wasn't a lot of that. There's certainly the water department, the water commission does have those points of view about making sure that should there be a septic system, that it is modern and perhaps even advanced.
Fran, you had also had your hand up.
Well, the only other comment they made, they talked about putting a rain garden down by Main Street. I just want to remind folks that we already pay the town in town taxes to maintain those fields and the tennis courts and everything. So personally, I think it's a good idea for them to keep that part of the property, because otherwise we'd be paying for it twice.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to take a position. I was just trying to report on ideas that were floated.
And the other thing is the deadlines that David Anthony were speaking about was really connected to getting on the CPI, the capital improvement initiatives, getting spots on that particular list, which this, for basically demo of the building, and that, that would be down at the bottom of the list, along with demoing Marston's Mills.
And that still remains the town's only expressed interest going forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, like I said, if we weren't interested, they have a process that they will follow, which may end up in a place where that we don't particularly care for, but it may not. Who knows?
Right. Well, and with the new leadership in the town, I haven't heard anything about whether that may bode a change of sentiment on the part of town council, but that'll certainly come to light over time if it does.
Yeah, David did volunteer that there's, it's not like there's money to do this. They would prefer not to have to spend any money on either maintaining it any further or demoing it. But I think if that wasn't well understood by the folks on this meeting, that should be understood.
Well, good. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks.
Kevin, you're going to present your findings on the needs assessment.
Yes, thank you. I will make a few opening comments here and then turn it over to the chief. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, I want to remind everybody what our intent is of this particular group, and that is, looking at what the long-term needs are for the Cotuit Fire Department, This work's been underway for a little while now. It actually was underway prior to the conversation about the school. However, frankly, with the school coming into play, a little bit more focus has been put on it. But we are truly looking at, what the fire department's needs are going forward and looking to see how best to accommodate those needs, frankly. Now, to that end, I want to really thank the chief and the deputy for all their hard work over the last couple of weeks. I've been putting a lot of extra stuff on top of them, on top of their day job, so to speak. So thank you to those guys. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been to the Sandwich Fire Department. We've been to East Harwich, and as well as we've been to COM. And we owe our thanks and appreciation to each one of those departments for spending time with us. And I think the chief is going to be sending out a thank you email to those, or letter to those organizations. They were very, very accommodating. We appreciate their time. The reason we went to those three particular departments is because the stations that we looked at were similar in size as to what we'd be looking at. So what we looked at, and when we looked at what our overall needs are, we're looking at probably requiring for about 10,000 square feet. So each one of those departments was in that range of somewhere around 10,000 square feet. Those particular stations, was in the area of about 10,000 square feet. And the costs, for the building of those stations was somewhere in the $6 million plus range. So, just as a point of reference. Now, to that point, the chief again has been doing some work looking at what the cost of construction are. And we're looking at, based on some of the conversations he's had, we're looking at cost of new to be somewhere around $600 to $650 per square foot for new, and for renovation to be somewhere around $600 per square foot. So that's what we're seeing so far. So it's been very.
Wait, so the costs are analogous?
No,
Three.
$300 per square foot for renovation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I misspeak there? $300 per square foot for renovation.
Okay.
My apologies. $300 for square foot for renovation. Okay. So it was very interesting to see the different facilities. I think Sandwich was both Sandwich and East Harwich were built approximately a year ago, or came online about a year ago or thereabouts. COM, Marston Mills, where we visited, has been in work for a little bit longer than that. However, it was interesting to see the different facilities. One of the things that we came away with a lot of lessons learned from there. One of the things that was very interesting was a medical treatment room that we saw in Sandwich. They did a very nice job with a medical treatment room there, where they can bring somebody in who is, maybe having some concerns that comes to the station. And we had a lot of conversation about that and how we could leverage something like that, and how something like that would be positioned relative to the firehouse, right? There's a lot of different considerations there when you think about COVID or what might be next, right? And you want to really prepare for that for the future. We also looked at decontamination areas and how that plays into the conversation. So a lot of different items like that, as well as, negative pressure rooms and that type of stuff, and how we leverage that kind of technology. So we looked at a lot of very interesting stuff, great layouts that those organizations had. And basically what we came back with was an understanding of where we want to go in the future. And what the chief has done, and I'll turn it over to the chief now. The chief has, with his superior skills, has developed a floor plan that I think he's going to put up on the screen now to take everybody through what we kind of as a blueprint for what we're thinking about, so everybody can get an idea what we're thinking about, what the station of the future should look like for us. Chief, with that, did I pretty much hit everything we talked about?
No, pretty much. So there's the Word document, which is the draft needs analysis, where we go through every part of our station and talk about where we don't meet standards. There's NFPA standards on decontamination for fire gear, decontamination of medical contamination, distance between fire trucks and apparatus bays, height of apparatus doors. Quite a few areas where we fall a little bit short, and we're putting Band-Aids on what we have and doing the best we can. But we tried to identify what the standards, how we would best meet the standards and, provide our services better to the community. And at the same time, looking at the other stations and thinking about the pandemic we're in and looking at the future of medical treatment and, community paramedicine, where more medical treatments are provided in the field, where it's at a lower cost and more convenient than medical centers, and to try to design facilities around those needs. So there's a Word document, which I guess will be released in draft since we're discussing it tonight. We did have, as we visit stations, we're finding some things that we want to add to it. And Commissioner Connolly pointed out the medical treatment room. So in the past, most fire stations had a chair at the entry lobbyway where you'd come in and get your blood pressure taken. There was no treatment room. With contagious diseases, pandemics, bringing something to the station is not a viable solution anymore. And recently, the state has released guidelines that allow first responders, EMTs, and paramedics to provide vaccinations in the field or at facilities. So having facilities where we can provide those services, not contaminate our facilities, is important. And they basically entail putting ER treatment rooms or doctor treatment rooms basically in fire stations in areas that don't require patients to contaminate the whole facility. So that's also going to get added to our draft analysis. So like I said, that'll be released, and we're continue to work on that as we visit fire stations and find other best practices that make sense for us. So what we did too is
Just real quick, I wanted to mention to that point, right? What we talked about and really looked at is, for that room, how do we avoid contamination of the facility, right? And how do we also take into consideration that perhaps somebody who has come in under their own power needs to leave in an ambulance? How do we facilitate that? Right, so that was part of the consideration as we looked at, as the chief put together, what would be the outline for the future? Is trying to take both of those things into consideration. A, protecting the fire station itself, the environment, and also getting somebody from that treatment room into an ambulance to move them out. Sorry, Chief, thank you.
No, exactly. I guess the document, I can put what we did too is we laid out, using this analysis and distance between fire trucks and medical treatment rooms and best practices, we tried to lay out our apparatus in an apparatus bay, our personnel, how we operate, in an actual drawing that represents what would fit our organization and what would fit the Cotuit Fire District. So I'll put it up on the screen if I can figure this out.
And again, that's a statement of fitting today, but also looking at, assuming some additional requirements over the course of time. You'll see in this document, as an example, a second ambulance called for here, right? Just as a backup, just as an example. Not saying there's one going to be purchased tomorrow, but it's good to have a point of reference and have it available.
Screen 3. Working on it here.
There you go.
It was there for a second.
Is it there now?
Yep,
Yep.
it is.
Oh, okay. My screen doesn't show it. Okay, so this is just an AutoCAD drawing showing our equipment. It also shows down here a spare ambulance. We don't have a spare ambulance. If we ever have one, it'll most likely be a shared resource with another community. But if we share a resource, we should plan on having a place to keep it protected indoors. So that's why it's drawn in here. Our large boat, the 29-foot Metal Shark Marina, showed inside for the winter. This layout happens to fit in the envelope of the Cotuit Elementary School. So while we're talking about the facility, we want to see if our program would fit within that shell and what kind of space it would take up and what kind of cost that would create. So that's why we laid it out in this way. The front apparatus bay, this side over here faces Old Oyster Road. We had a structural engineer look at the building, and he said, if you use this L at the end and you put a I-beam in the ceiling, that you can open it up and make the ceiling cathedral at very low cost. So that made the most sense to put in large bay doors. So you can put 14-foot bay doors in, so we can actually fit fire trucks from other communities in our building. which would be something new for us. So the front bay is our frontline engine, our frontline ambulance, and the frontline response utility pickup truck. Down the bottom is gear storage. On the other side is our secondary pieces, our brush breaker, backup engine. If there ever was a spare ambulance, our large boat, portable boat, and a light trailer we have. And then down the bottom here, this entrance right here would be the entrance for medical treatment, blood pressures. Patients would come in this door, immediately go to this room right here, which would be patient treatment as well as medical supply storage. The other part of the station is the operation space. So there's a living area for the guys. As they come back from calls, they would go through a decon room. So the decon room has got gross decontamination showers, gear extractors, gear dryers, wash areas, and then they'd exit into the station where they'd be able to jump into the showers and then use the lockers in the individual bunk rooms. Nowadays, most modern stations, they try to put the lockers in the bunk rooms, not locker rooms, because locker rooms, if you did locker rooms, you'd have to have a male and a female locker room. It's more efficient to put the lockers in the bunk rooms. 3 offices, lieutenant, deputy chief, conference room, gym, and report writing room, and a storage area. So nothing overly complicated, but this square footage would accomplish what we need, and it fits in that shell. It takes up about 10,000 square feet total. There are several walls which exist, which do not need to be moved. The structure itself of that school, all the trusses on the main structure are free span. So actually, none of the interior walls are load bearing. So not a complicated process to knock some walls out. And we tried to make a design that required less of that.
And so,
And
Chief,
if you wanted to see this, if you happen to overlay this
yeah, let's
onto the,
overlay it, Chief. Just a quick comment. None of that. It's all, no, you can leave it on the overlay, Chief. You know, that's all, you know, a high level thought process, right? There's tweaking to be done, obviously. So any suggestions are obviously welcome, but I think the chief has done a wonderful job looking at what our needs are going forward, what the department's needs will be, and then leveraging a resource that is potentially available to us. Not sure if it is. If it is, this is how we would, you know, as a first draft, take a look at it, right, Chief?
no, exactly. So the idea is we provide the committee, the school committee, our needs analysis and how it may fit in what they have and what the cost structure that may be for determination of the district and whether this is something, and the public ultimately, if this is something they'd be interested in. So this is how it overlays the facility. Again, this is just kind of a high level.
And Chief, just a quick obvious statement. This so everybody is on board makes the assumption that temporary housing out front is removed.
Yeah, the temporary
The
school.
Quonset hut on where his marker is now.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some
just
what
one
they
point.
call portable classrooms that were back there that are tear downs. Those have really no value. So I didn't even bother drawing those. They don't exist.
Nope.
Just as a note too, there is a crawl space under the entire school. The floor of the school is cast in place concrete with, if you look down here, I got them drawn in there. So there are concrete sonotubes that hold up the floor in the basement, 16-inch concrete support columns. So to support that, we assume that you got to fill under the apparatus bay with concrete, which is called flowable fill. So they got a flowable fill you can actually pump in. It's $100 a yard. If we filled the entire space under every vehicle, which we need a structural engineer to tell us whether we needed to do that. But worst case, if we did, there's a material cost of about under $90,000 to fill this end of the building with concrete, which $90,000 is a large amount of money. But if you were looking to building a metal frame apparatus bay for this amount of vehicles, you're looking at probably close to $2 million. So in the grand scheme, it's not a very large number.
Hey, Chief, stay on that view for a second, if you would.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out, or have you just do a quick discussion of something that I found very interesting in the two of the stations we looked at, being the integrated indoor training area. And I think you have taken that into account here, correct?
Yeah, so many of the modern fire stations nowadays look to use the apparatus bay to create training structures. And what we would do here is the area over the gear locker room area over this rear entrance and the area over the medical supply room would have a mezzanine. So it would have a cathedral ceiling, which extended to both sides of the apparatus bay. And this would be a platform basically. And what we would do is on both sides, we would have simulated open windows. And what firefighters would do is they'd practice throwing ladders to the windows, getting up in the mezzanine, going through entanglement props, narrow entry props, stuff that we set up right now. We set up in the abandoned building next to us, but many stations have the ability to do this in their facility in controlled weather conditions which are safer and allow them to train on a regular basis. So we would be putting structures such as that into the structure, which really have no increased costs, but have great potential benefits.
Chief, I had a question about this, whether we're talking about the school property or not, whether we're talking about a potential different site and new construction in the area that constitutes the bays. What kind of drainage do the bay areas, equipment bay areas need for, right now we do most of the wash down out on the apron, right?
We do. So when we put the new septic system in at the current fire station, we get exemptions to not put in what most facilities have nowadays, which they call a tight tank system. So our runoff is allowed to filter into the ground. And the health department in Barnstable has done some tests on fire trucks. They've ran them up and down wet roads, washed them off, tested the runoff, and determined that there was no large environmental hazard to letting runoff from vehicles run into the ground, seeing that if you don't wash them, they run, it just came from the road anyway. So, but in general, most new facilities nowadays will require that all runoff is contained and treated as hazardous waste and collected and disposed of properly. So at this site, if we went there, especially since there's a well site next door, we would have to have a tight tank system. So there'd be a tank outside that would collect all runoff from washing vehicles, from vehicles dripping as they're pulled back in, and that is all treated and as hazardous waste and disposed of on a regular basis.
Well, one of the reasons I ask is because when you were talking about having a structural engineer tell us about in the proposal of potentially using the existing school building on this end with the sonotubes and partially or more than partially filling in that basement. Before that would happen, the drainage system or a drainage system could be integrated into these bay floors.
Right. They'd either have to drill in drains to the existing floors if the pitch was such that it would work, or they would have to add a layer on top of the existing floor, a couple inches, and pitch it and create drains in the surface that's created on top of it. One of the two, correct.
But you're right, Rick. That would make it easy, relatively speaking, to do that because it's empty beneath there. Absolutely it would.
And this would also be, if the idea of using the existing school building or this end of the existing school building, as the discussion about it moves forward, this is where the input, I think, from the water department again becomes important as to what their concerns would be and what solutions or assistance they could offer in terms of how we go about thinking about this kind of part of it, both typical septic, but also this more particular kind of runoff.
Well, I think if you operate from the perspective of we can't do, if the use of this parcel becomes related to the fire station, we have to, I think, proceed from the perspective of we have to do as much as we can to make sure that all these things are done rather than, some of them or none of them.
Right.
Because I believe they're just going to, we want them as a strong partner in this whole effort. And I think one of the strongest narratives in general is about water quality. So making sure that we are treating any of the runoff from the trucks or the vehicles, et cetera. And I think that's a big piece of it.
Absolutely.
I think everybody acknowledged that the water quality is the #1 priority. I'm sure if we were to put a fire station in here, it would have an alternative septic, there would be virtually zero nitrogen loading. There would be virtually zero effect on the groundwater. And that's the only way that's even possible.
So Chief, what I would just suggest, why don't you toss back up that chart and show the whole facility itself. So I know there's been some conversation. Again, this is just, a view of how we might be able to leverage it from a fire department point of view. Obviously, there needs to be additional conversations. We're just kind of putting this out there now for conversation, but there is obviously still, Chief, how many square feet are left here?
Over 8,000 square feet are remaining.
Okay. So, and for those of you that are familiar with the facility, there's obviously the entryway up in the top left-hand corner, so to speak, which has plenty of room for perhaps administrative offices. There's plenty of room for additional in what would be the classrooms that are still left there to be appropriately leveraged. So there is still, fire department, if indeed that came to fruition, would be leveraging a portion of this property, but a good portion is still left to be leveraged by the rest of the village. In this case, you'd still have the gym available, which would be kind of a nice option as well, right?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any way anything's going to get sold without community space. So I think having the gym available to the community is going to have to be an essential part of this plan.
Well, I really appreciated when I walked through that area, the potential of that gym space also serving as emergency shelter. It
No,
just
that would obviously be part of the use to it. The emergency shelter would have to have a backup generator, obviously for fire station. There's actually the mechanical rooms, the basement, which would have very little use anymore with that existing ventilation system removed. They'd be placed for animal storage, for emergency shelter as well, with outside access. So that's certainly going to have to be part of the plan.
It's interesting, Rick. You're absolutely right about that. And one of the things we did learn that the chief included in this conversation here is a comm room inside the fire facility. In the event of an emergency situation where communications, as in dispatch or other communications, were lost, the idea was to have a room that would have the right resources available to leverage in the event of an emergency. And again, you can't plan for every single contingency that's out there, but you can try to put the base infrastructure in place that you think you might need, and then figure out where you go from there, I should say.
Yeah, great.
I have some thoughts, if I may.
Please.
So my reaction to this. So first of all, if I recall correctly, other than some of the new ideas that were floated tonight, things like the treatment rooms and so forth, that we've seen that document before. So yeah, is that true?
I believe it was on the cloud drive for last month's meeting. I don't think we've discussed it until tonight.
Yeah, no, right. But I remember
Yes.
reading it.
Yes, you have.
So I like the idea that it's sort of a living document. So thank you for that. Don't take this anything other than just sort of when you look at this, and I did a couple of times, a lot over the past few days. The immediate thing that jumps out is that a lot of this is taken up by the fire department, and just saying that it's a vision. Especially when you look at it, the overlay, it jumps out at you that, well, the lion's share, certainly more than 50% of the building is potentially being consumed by the station. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm just sort of saying that that was one of the first things that I looked at. I was like, oh, okay. It also felt to me like it was very much, and I take your point or your words, Kevin, about there's lots to, this is just the beginning of the process, and there's lots of tweaking to do here. It felt to me like there's a lot of it was, this is sort of how the department operates now, but it seems to me that the future continues to move more towards advanced, life-saving work rather than the firefighting equipment per se. So, for example, more ambulances, less engines, for example, or these are just impressions that I had. So, would potentially the the footprint shrink if we imagine things like that, where we're having smaller, more smaller equipment rather than the same the same stuff that we have now.
So,
So you don't have to answer these. I'm just sort of giving you my thing. The other thing is that so when we think of today, what is the future? I mean, I do think that it's still important for us as we continue to go through these needs analyses discussions, that we actively think about consolidation. And what might that have to, what might that bring? Not that that's a foregone conclusion by any stretch. What might that how might that change the nature of what we put in place into building? These are just some of the reactions that I had that I'm sharing. No need necessarily to debate them now. Just sort of these are ideas that hit me when I was looking at this.
Can I respond real quick? You're absolutely right, Adam. We're trying to peer into the future as best we can.
I know you are, Chief. I'm not at all trying to say that.
One of the reasons we went to the Marston's Mills Fire Station is it is a substation. It is a substation for a multi-jurisdictional community, Calm Fire District, Centerville, Austral, Marston's Mills. If there ever was consolidation, you would have a substation in Cotuit, which you wouldn't have a chief, you wouldn't have a deputy, but you'd have a substation. That facility is about 9,000 square feet. It houses 3 firefighters.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
That's what Cotuit would have. It's virtually the same square footage. And the cost of their facility to recreate today, if you were going to have a COM substation in Cotuit, would be, I think they said you should put away $7.8 million.
I think that cost COM 5, right, or something.
What's that again?
Wasn't that 5? Back in the day when they put that up.
When they built the Marston's Mill Station, it cost $1.68 million, I think, is what the quote was. I asked the architect that designed it. I asked him what it cost, how many square feet, and what it would cost to rebuild today. So it was 1.68 million in 2000, I think. So 20 years ago.
Okay. So 5 today. Yeah. 5 to 7.
Build it
okay.
Today, I think you said if you were starting construction today, did I send the document to you? I think you said if you're starting construction today, you'd be looking at about 6-something million. He said if you weren't starting today, then and we're just starting the planning process, you should put away 7.8 million for the project.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm hearing is that even as a substation, yeah, maybe it's not 10,000, it's 9,000. So okay, that's fine. I'm just
right.
I was
So
just
this. I think if this becomes an option and it becomes significantly cheaper than building a new station, whether it be a substation or a station with administrative, if it's a significantly less cost, then I think it's a value to the Cotuit taxpayers, regardless of the governance structure that goes forward. And the governance structure is certainly an important question. And I think that's something everybody's willing to talk about and have some studies done on and figure that out.
And the last point I'd make is I think this is fantastic work that is clear how much, first of all, capability you have in doing this. And it shows an awful lot of effort. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. It's been a group effort, actually.
Yeah.
Commissioner Connolly's helped a lot. And actually, the duty crew has helped a lot too. So every couple of days, several times, I've had them just go down to the school, walk through and bounce ideas off of them, and they gave me lots of ideas. And it's a group effort. It's not.
No, understood. I sort of meant the royal you.
Yeah. Thanks.
So a couple quick comments, if I may.
Hey, Hank, Kevin, can I ask you to hold those for a second? Fran had her hand up.
No, I just wanted to have a question. Is there any room in your design here for record storage?
Absolutely. That obviously would be so.
Don't forget potentially a second floor.
So I think the second floor over this part of the main structure with the truss is going to be, could be problematic. It could use it for storage. To get between the truss without altering them, you'd have to have rooms between the truss, and there's 14 feet clear span between them. So it's something I'd like the architects to look at, and certainly that's a great idea, but I'm not sure what the cost.
It may turn out to be a bad
for that
idea.
area
Don't forget about it. You know,
I won't forget about it, but I wouldn't be surprised if the cost per square foot for a second floor is significantly higher than cost per square foot for the first, but.
Oh, sure. But if it's for records.
Records could, yeah. There's also, so there's this room right here, which is the room on the way down to the basement, which is, I can pull the size up on the other computers, 24 by 12, I think. There's almost a full classroom here, which is about 24 by 30. There's two large offices in the front, which are both about 12 by 20. There's a huge room in the basement mechanical room. There's over 8,000 square feet of extra room for district offices, water department if they choose. And I'll reach out to all those organizations and ask them if they want me to help them put their space requirements on this footprint for consideration by the committees.
Because the treasurer and the clerk are going to need storage space.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No,
And workspace.
yeah. There's no way this project works unless it's a solution for every piece of the district and a community center for the people. I think we all acknowledge that.
And I have one other question. Can you move it so you can show the bays again? So from the bays in the back and the front, you're going to need to add some more asphalt driveway.
Yes.
In the back and the front.
Yes.
Would those need special drainage systems on them, because they're fire trucks or?
I don't believe so. I'll have to reach out. I think we wouldn't be allowed to wash fire trucks outside unless they were pitched such that the water was collected. So I think would be restricted to wash all vehicles inside. But I think as long as we wash them inside, that we would be allowed to have.
Because the front entrance is really going close to or going over the watershed.
The front entrance goes over where the bicycle rack is or used to be, and yeah. Yep. No, this has to be a zero impact on the water quality. That's the only way it works. So.
Thank you.
Kevin?
All right, thank you, Rick. So just a quick couple comments. Adam, it's funny as you referencing the fact that a lot of that space is within the facility there is being picked up by the fire department. It's exactly why I was looking to have a conversation about facility requirements independent of the school, right? So independent of what.
I think that's smart.
Yeah, independent of what the school was either happens or doesn't happen. The fact of the matter is we need around 10,000 square feet. Okay, so if we need 10,000 square feet, we can ultimately go and build another department, another station, if it's appropriate, and we're going to need probably around 10,000 square feet. In the event that we leverage a facility that's already in the village, we need about 10,000 square feet. So
it doesn't change.
It doesn't change, exactly. So that's an independent conversation. It's all valid though. Your other point is kind of funny, and I was smiling with it because I happen to be of the belief that as a general statement, I don't think I've hidden this fact. I think the department needs probably 2 active ambulances. Right? That's what I believe. To your point on what the future holds and what we should have and shouldn't have. I think the reality is you're always going to have 2 engines. you need that, and in the event that something catastrophic happens, or the nature of fixing an engine is not something that, and if I'm saying anything incorrect, chief, correct me please, but to get one of those fixed is going to be an extended period of time if something happens to it, and you're not going to be borrowing an engine from something else. So you need 2 engines. And I personally, while I know the chief is saying that would it be a loaner potentially, and potentially it could be, but when you look at call personnel and you look at the opportunity to send one crew out and then have another crew send out and another ambulance as appropriate, I like that option personally. So I'm with you 100%. But what this facility does is provide for what we need into the future without being exorbitant, in my opinion. But thank you for making those points, because they lead right into where I think we're headed as a village with the fire department potentially.
Right, and I didn't mean to at all suggest that one way is the only, anything that I was saying was the direction that we need to go. It was just more like, oh, let's make sure we consider all those directions.
Agreed.
I agree with you. I think advanced life support is, if you just look at the numbers, that's predominantly, and especially when you begin talking about things like treatment rooms on a station, and the future of healthcare continuing to become more distributed, whether it's to a fire station like this or to urgent cares, facilities, et cetera. That does seem the way the future is going, and to knit ourselves appropriately to that future is a good thing, of course. There may be a day when you say, well, maybe we need 3 ambulances and maybe don't need a brush break, just as an example.
Right, and if you look at those rooms, just to take that point a step further, if you look at the crew rooms, right, where are they? Chief, blow up the
crew over on the left.
Yep.
The bunk rooms?
Bunk rooms, thank you. You notice just to that point, and with the level of flexibility included, you have double bunks in those rooms, right? Just to have flexibility in the event of something, catastrophic happens and you need additional space. Or if you do have additional crew members come on because there's an additional requirement within the station. It's not like we're all of a sudden saying, oops, we built 3 bunk rooms and we don't have enough space anymore.
All right.
We've had times in the past, remember Hurricane Bob, I think there was probably 11 or 12 of us that lived in the fire station 24/7 for a week or 2. So
I remember that well.
There are times when, storms where you want to double up crews and you may end up with 6 people on duty for the night. Hurricane, you probably want every person you can possibly get, and it could be for a week or 2, as well as police and electric company, anybody else you can possibly convince to hang out with you and help provide services to the community. So.
Well,
I remember that you couldn't drive down Main Street for many days.
No.
I still haven't recovered from all the chainsawing.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Chief and Deputy Chief.
Welcome.
And thanks all the firefighters as well.
I think this has been very helpful to consolidate these pieces of information and move the discussion forward, both in breadth and depth. I think that we will pick this up.
Hey, Rick, can I just make a quick suggestion?
Yeah.
Call it how you want, but I think I would offer, I'm going to offer the chief's time and my time and probably the deputy's time as well, that if Adam would like to have his committee see this rendering and have a conversation about what we're suggesting here, we'd be more than happy to participate in that.
I was going to ask that, is it, I don't know whether this next meeting is necessarily the right timing, et cetera, but
Well, we have one of the chairs in attendance tonight.
yeah, Fran, what do you think?
I can talk to Jim about it. I think the next meeting is, we should sit down and decide what we're going to be looking at in terms of use of the property,
All All right, so maybe it is the right time. Happy to let
You know,
you know.
tear the building down, just leave it a field to protect the water supply, fire station. Any other suggestions anybody else has? You know, I mean, there have been multiple suggestions, you know, a nursing home, um, daycare center.
Yeah, it's multifarious.
It's, the offer's out there. Let's put it this way. The offer's out there and you guys let us know as appropriate.
I'll run it by Jim and I'll let you know.
Well, we will also have the video of this meeting posted, and along with that, the Word document and the diagrams that were presented. They're all just working drafts, but they will be available
Yeah.
for people to look at and question.
Thank you.
I think that we've done
I
what
guess
we
it's
hope to
a
accomplish on
shift change on the ship there. Right?
this. I forget you guys can hear it. I got my earmuffs on.
Rick, can I make a motion to adjourn?
Certainly, we would be picking these topics up on January 12th at our next regular
Yes.
monthly meeting. I think I have that date right.
And if I may, just before we vote on Kevin's motion, I like the idea of potentially continuing this sort of every 2-week thing for a little bit, so we can continue to keep the communication going.
Certainly.
Okay.
I'll second your motion, Kevin.
Hold that thought for 1 second. I am going to, and I have a conflict on the 12th. Unfortunately. Let me,
Well, you know what? The Conservation Committee meeting that has been perpetually postponed about the proposed dock work and our potential slip has been rescheduled yet again for the 12th at 4:30 of that. So that would be that same day. So we might have reason to want to consider looking for an alternate date time for our
Are you
next
out at-
regular meeting.
How about the 11th? Just
Monday, the 11th. Fran, do you know if Prudential is meeting that night?
No, we aren't.
Okay.
I can't the 11th. I apologize.
okay.
I'd actually request if at all possible, we push to the 19th. Is that a possibility? I know it's a week later.
I can do the 19th.
I can as well.
All right, let's
Thank
plan
you.
on our next meeting being the 19th. We'll pick this topic up, and the expectation will be to continue to have interim meetings for this kind of updating after that.
Excellent.
With all that said, take a vote on the motion to adjourn.
Aye,
Aye.
Commissioner Zace.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Have a good one.
Happy
Take care.
holidays.
Have
Happy
good
holidays.
holidays.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.